Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different that I have actually never done here on the podcast, which is actually kind of doing a hodgepodge of topics. I was sitting down this morning trying to come up with an idea of where I want to kind of go on the podcast today. And kind of what I mentioned a couple weeks ago on the podcast is I don't want to share things if it doesn't feel aligned, or I don't want to feel like I have to come up with something. I want this to be an easy thing. I want this to be something that you guys get value out of. And so I was sitting down looking through some notes that I've taken recently through, from different books, from different events that I've been attending, just looking through my own downloads and my own coaching that I've been kind of doing myself. And there's been a little bit of this, I'll write something down. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so good. However, when I'll even tell myself like, this would be such a great thing to put onto the podcast or to dive into further. But then when I start to go and try and flesh it out or try and create more content with it, I feel like there's just not a lot there, and not from a bad place, but at the same time, I'm like, I still want to bring some of these little pieces of insights to you guys. And so this idea kind of came to my mind of creating this hodgepodge podcast where I bring you ample of thoughts and ideas and just maybe a little bit of a backstory or a little bit of a deeper insight to it. But instead of thinking I have to stay on one topic the whole time, I think we all can benefit sometimes from a buffet of, you know what, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of things that you guys can ponder and play with and see what is relevant to you, what you're going through right now. I've been kind of doing that with the Instagrams lately, as I've been going through and trying to figure out what is valuable to put out there to you guys. And instead of me thinking like I have to just stay on one track, I'm like, okay, let's just do a buffet. Like, some people need emotion work, some people need help with their relationships, some people need this. And so I'm letting myself just let things go instead of thinking that I need to stick to one topic or to one focus. So you guys can come along with me today on this podcast. And if you guys like it, let me know, because this is an experiment for me to kind of do it in this way. But I always am thinking like this would be such a great aha for somebody, or it was a great aha for me. And I just want to share it sometimes. And this is a great platform to be able to do that. So I've been doing a lot of reading in Michael Singer's books. If you guys have not picked up his books, I highly recommend it. I've told a couple of my clients about it. They've told me how much they are loving his stuff. I've heard the Audible is amazing and people are eating that up. The way that I guess he reads it is, it's so easy to consume. But there's just so many things in there that they're not going to be new information, but the way that he presents it is so beautiful, and it really can help maybe bring some pieces together. So a lot of the stuff that I want to share today is coming from him, as well as Kyle Cease. Kyle Cease is another mentor of mine. He's another coach of mine that I've been really learning a lot from, and he's really helped me to go deeper within myself. So Michael Singer, Kyle Cease, and then also with myself, as I've been doing some of my own thought work and just trying to let things go, my own emotion work, some of the questions that I've been kind of bringing to you guys these last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, we're just going to kind of see how this goes. It's going to be kind of like a conversation, and I don't know, let's just see how you guys take it. But anyways, the first thing that I wrote down here, and I've got like this little notebook that I just constantly writing down ahas and amazing little facts with. And I'm like, when am I ever going to do with this? When am I ever going to use this stuff? And we're going to do that today. So one of the first things I wrote on here is faith needs doubt to grow. Even as I say that, I'm like, that is so good. It kind of it reminds me of the contrast. We tell ourselves that we just want to be happy all the time, or we just want to have faith all of the time. And yet at the same time, we dismiss and we forget the other side of that, of like, in order for us to have faith, we also need to accept and allow for the doubt. Doubt actually helps to grow the faith. And what I write here is, for faith to flourish, we may need greater doubt. Now, it says may. I'm not saying this is a one size fits all. Everybody needs this. Everybody needs to doubt everything. No, but I just love the permission that it gives, that if you're in this place of doubt, that's not a bad thing. If you're questioning things in your faith, in your relationship, in your health, whatever it is, it's not a bad thing. It helps us actually sometimes to bring us back to what does align with us, and gives us permission to double down on those places. I've done this a lot in my coaching lately, is there's been a lot of doubt in coaching and the industry and all this types of things. And it's not that I'm throwing it all out and saying, oh, if I doubt it, then I must quit it. It's give me permission to have more faith in myself, faith in what I can do, and that kind of thing. So if you're experiencing doubt, that might resonate for you, that faith needs doubt to grow. You're just growing your faith. So I think that's a beautiful one. Another one that I write down in here is talking about the how the temporary is actually very beautiful. And sometimes we have so much fear around things that are temporary, but how if we actually embrace that the only thing that matters is this moment and that we can live here in this time and that everything is temporary, I think we would find that we'd be more present, we'd be more all in on our lives. And it's just a beautiful thing for us to think about. An example that this was coming from Kyle Cease. Kyle Cease talks about this. He says, we tell ourselves that we just want more of something because it's amazing. But he's like, actually, no, we actually do want everything to be temporary. Our brain wants to tell us otherwise, but really think about this. Like if you had a massage and you're like, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever. Well, now imagine that massage lasting 5 hours. Now imagine that massage lasting a day, lasting a week. Like after a while, it's hard to be there. So what makes a massage amazing is that it's temporary, that it has an end date to it, and that we can be all in that massage. Same thing with like going to Disneyland. Have you ever made the mistake, and I say that lovingly, the mistake of doing a 5-day pass to Disneyland? That's a long time, but I can't even imagine being there longer than that and doing a week or living there. It again, what makes the happiest place on earth happy is because it's temporary and we can be all in on that moment because we know it's going to end. And the same thing like Vegas, going to Vegas and being on the strip. What makes it amazing is that it's temporary. So if we can just accept that everything is temporary and not have fear of the end, like I know it's going to end. I think about this with every relationship, every emotion, every situation that I'm in. If everything is temporary and we don't need to get to the place of clinging to it, because I think that's another way of us almost being too attached to something. And that also prevents us from being in the moment. But it's just understanding and embracing and accepting everything is temporary. This moment is temporary. My relationship with my kids is temporary. My health is temporary, and not from a place of fear, but just like I'm all in. I'm all in on this moment. And fear isn't going to be useful in this situation. It actually prevents me from being in this moment. So everything, if you think about it, if there's something that you're fearing being taken away from you, or you're afraid that it's going to end at some point, that fear is going to keep you stuck. And that fear is going to prevent you from actually living in this moment. There's like, think about the things that you fear leaving you. And that's usually what an indication that there's work to be done, not from again, like judgment or anything like that. But if you're so afraid of money leaving you, then there's some attachment there that you might need to take a look at. Like, what if we were just like all in on like, yeah, this money's going to leave me and it's totally okay. I'm all in. Now, I know when I say that, some people like get super frivolous and like, so what you're saying is if I get to acceptance, then I'm just going to spend it all. And I'm like, no, being in acceptance, actually you have abundance with it. Same thing with our like time with our kids or time with our spouses or time within a relationship. If you're in a place of like, you know what, at some point this is going to end. If you're all in, then you're going to show your real self. You're going to take these moments. You're not going to be in a FOMO place of like, oh, I have to cling on to every single moment. I have to be here with them all the time. Again, it's more of abundance of like, there's more than enough time, but I also want to be all in on this moment, all in on this face, these moments, these experiences. And you just treasure them a little bit more, but not from a place of fear. So just think about that. Everything is temporary. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It actually makes things more beautiful. Let's see. What other thing do I have on here? Oh, so kind of diving a little bit more into this. So talking about attachment, how we were saying before, of like, if you are afraid of money being gone or a person being gone, usually that shows us where we're being attached out of fear, right? And ultimately what we want to get to is a place of being more like a tree. A tree is, if you think about a tree, they give us fruit all of the time. They aren't the fruit. The tree doesn't believe they're the fruit, right? They're just more of like, I produce these fruits, I produce these moments, I produce these experiences, and I want to give them away. Because it would be weird for a tree to be like, I can't give these away. There's, not enough, or I have to hold on to this fruit because it's an experience that I have to have with me for the rest of my life. If you think about a tree doing that, what's going to happen to all of the fruit if it's like just held on to forever? Well, for one, it's going to weigh it down and it's not able to give the gift that is it, right? But also it's going to start to make it sick, right? If a tree is holding on to it, the fruit's going to go bad. The tree's not going to be as healthy. So it is learning that in order for us to actually be the best version of ourselves is to give. not hold on to every experience, not be attached to money, not be attached to our health or relationships. It's this balance of like, you know what? I'm not those things. I'm not my money. I'm not my relationships. I those are fruits of me, but I'm willing to give it. I'm willing to be all in and be healthy with it and love the experiences that I have from it. Um, so that's that one. Let's see. Another part of this. I don't know if I want to really go into that one. Well, we will, because it does talk about control, and control is an issue for me. So that's obviously why I wrote it down. I think a lot of you guys can resonate with control being something that we all kind of struggle with. And most of our struggles, if like we take it down to the heart of it, of like why, it's usually coming down to some kind of control issue for ourselves. So we feel like we should be able to control how a situation goes, or how someone behaves, or how someone thinks about us, be able to control our thoughts, control the future, control just all of it. And the more that I learn about trying to surrender control, it's very interesting to see how much more I want to cling. And I think that's natural, because again, it's, you know, it that prover, that doer, that controller, it wants a job. I've given it a job for 40 years, 40 plus years. And as we try and let go of it, of course, it's going to double down. And I don't think it's ever going to go away completely. I think a prover, striver, giver, or not giver, but a doer, it's a character that I've created, and I just have to notice it. I have to notice when it's trying to double down and it's not coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of being useful to me. So let me just read you guys what I wrote down here. It says, if the prover is not in control, what does it fear will happen? And this is a question I think would be beneficial for us to ask when we start to notice there's a little character that is running around. And I love to do that kind of work for ourselves, right? Just learning the emotions, being able to see it as a smaller version of ourselves. And usually, like I said, it comes down to this control person. It's like, I have to do more. I have to do this thing, or I should do this thing. And if you can ask that part of you, this question is, if the prover is not in control, if you are not able to do this thing, what does it fear will happen? And I think it's a powerful question for us to see. And for me, a lot of the times it's like, then I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be seen. And some of the answers that I came up with, because I was doing my own coaching as I was asking this question, it says, the thing that comes up, the thing that I would fear is that if I lacked control, or that part of me didn't have control, it would mean chaos. And it would mean chaos in my life. It may mean chaos inside. And so the things that, and this is all from Kyle Cease. Kyle Cease is so good with this. He says, you know, you need to just tell that part, that prover, the doer, the busybody. You need to tell that part that says, if I'm not in control, it's going to be chaos. You need to tell that part of you that you are allowed to feel chaos in my body. And you just sit there with it. And you're like, you are allowed to feel chaos in my body. And it's very interesting to see what happens. Every time I get pushback, I get resistance, and that's normal. It's totally normal for us to do that. But again, it's not you that's chaos. It's not you, it's a prover. It's these characters, these versions, these parts of ourselves that we've created. And so the more that we can recognize that separation, we can recognize these characters that we've created to try and keep peace or try and keep control in our lives, the more we can learn to do things differently. So learning to ask yourself these questions, learning to say, hey, you are welcome to feel this way in my body. You are allowed to feel like chaos in my body. It can be really, really help us to settle, not need to try and control everything on the outside, but we're trying to help ourselves to say, like, you know what you're feeling right now is valid, and it's okay. It's okay for you to feel this way. So this is what I write down. Again, sometimes I try and say things differently than what I write down, but I'm just going to read it. So it says, there are people who want to feel peace, but it's out of resistance to chaos within their body. Let me read that again. There are people who want to feel peace. They say that. They're like, I just want to feel peace. But usually it's out of resistance to chaos within the body. So they have to create a peaceful situation all of the time. That's the control, right? They're trying to create peace with other people, try to create peace in their bank account, trying to create peace, whatever. They're trying to do peace on the outside, because on the inside their body is a bunch of chaos. And if you're chaos on the outside, right? If there's things that are out of control, the relationship, the money, whatever it is, then what that means is you're going to actually have to face the chaos within. So you need everything to be peaceful all of the time. You need the circumstances to be peaceful all of the time. And if you don't, you're going to feel that chaos inside. So the next level to be able to get to the place of true and ultimate peace is chaos is allowed to be inside of your body. It's okay for it to be there. At the same time, that peace that you're offering up to the chaos is going to heal it. So notice it's kind of like a leveling effect here. When we're saying like, I'm feeling so much chaos in my body, the next level, instead of trying to control the outside and create peace on the outside, it's bringing peace to the chaos within. Like, you are welcome to feel like peace inside of me. It's okay. And letting yourself see that part of you and say like, okay, if it's not chaotic right now, then what? And I always find for myself, it's interesting. I actually feel more comfortable with chaos. I tell myself I don't want chaos, but I've actually feel more at home with chaos. And I see this with a lot of times with my clients. They're like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. But then when we try and go to peace, they're not comfortable in the peace. So we have to practice bringing peace to the chaos and say like, you know what? It's okay for you to feel this way. It's okay for you to feel like you're running around in a circle and then just loving it. And that's actually how you're going to create change in your body overall. And you'll find that your life will reflect that, because what we feel within, we do without, right? So if you find that you're trying to control everything on the outside, it's usually an indication that you don't feel like peace on the inside. So just notice that for yourself. Where are you trying to control everything, and where can you actually bring peace to yourself within? Bring peace to the chaos. Let's see. Okay, another good one. I actually brought this to my clients this last week in our coaching call. I was talking about this even with myself as I'm kind of going through this. And you've heard a version of this, I'm sure, before, but it's choosing free over right. So a lot of the times we have something that comes into our life and we want to double down on being right. Our brain wants to be right. Okay, it does. Everything that we think, we want to be right about. Everything that the perspective that we have, we want to be right about. But I often tell my clients, especially when I'm first meeting with them, I was like, you can totally be right in this situation, but then you're stuck. You have no options versus, and the way that it's worded here is you can choose freedom, but another way is the willingness to be wrong. Can you be wrong here? And that is freedom. Now that totally, even as I say that, there's so much resistance to that. I'm like, no, I have to be right. But I also can see where the freedom is. I can choose to be right about my thoughts, about the story, about this person, or I can choose freedom. And the freedom, I think that's where we start to be able to see more solutions. That's where we start to be able to heal ourselves. Yeah, what I write down here is I said, decided what others think of you. Okay, so if you're seeing like maybe you're struggling with a relationship, a friend or a client or something like that, and you've already decided what, you already know what they're thinking about you. Basically, you are choosing to be right over free. You are deciding that the word of others is the most important thing, right? So you have to learn how to choose freedom over being right. And I know I just completely botched that whole situation. But what I'm saying is, when you're struggling with something, and this is another aspect of control too, but if you're struggling with something, the offer is to kind of ask yourself this question. Again, notice how many questions we're asking in this podcast today. But and because I love questions. Questions are a beautiful thing for us to help us dive in. But I want you to start to ponder, if you're struggling with something, am I trying to be right in the situation, or am I trying to be free? And I think free is where we kind of go in. We're not trying to control the outside. Free is trusting myself. Free is allowing myself to feel the emotions, acknowledging what I'm feeling, but it's taking off the trying to control everything else and saying, I am right. Again, you're stuck. If you are right, you are stuck. You can be right. Totally. You are willing. I'm willing as your coach to say you're right. But then what does it get you? What is the benefit in you being right? And all it does is embolden that character, that part of yourself that's trying to prove, that's trying to be right for some reason. And a question that just came to my mind that you could ask that part of yourself is like, if you are wrong, then what does that mean? What do you make that mean? And you might find that there's more answers that come up that need to be seen, that need to be acknowledged, and let yourself heal in those situations. Because sometimes we are taught that if we're wrong, something's wrong with us. So again, you got to know why you're fighting for the right so much. And what would happen if you were wrong? What would happen if you stopped being right all the time? Let yourself see what answers come. So another one that I want to kind of play around with is the 4 steps to that freedom. So many times we kind of think about this and we're like, okay, so how do I get there? How do I get to freedom? And one of the things that I dived into in my coaching was these 4 phases that I kind of see. And I've been in this journey myself. And this is kind of how we'll finish this podcast today. So hopefully you guys have gotten something out of this, but if not, this will be totally beneficial to you. So you guys can write this down a little bit, the 4 steps to freedom. And I think of it it can be kind of like on a pendulum, but I also don't think it's necessarily step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It can be, I think we can kind of go back and forth on them. But anyways, I think on one side can be that we start off with, I can't do something. If we're struggling with something, I can't do this, right? I can't do this. This is too hard. This is unfair, whatever it is. That's kind of where we start in our struggles. And I don't think a lot of you guys are in that place. Maybe you guys do sometimes get there, but I don't think a lot of you stay stuck there. That's why you're here with me on this podcast. But just notice that maybe where you kind of get into phase 1 of, I can't do this. That's the I can't step. The second step, this is where I find myself oftentimes trying to do things, is the striver, the prover. And it's more of like, I have to do this, or I should do this. And it's a lot of action taking, but it's coming from a pressured place. It's just trying to prove something, right? And it's a very exhausting place to be. And you're trying to control the uncontrollable. You're trying to step outside of you. It's a lot of action based. It's a lot of circumstance based. And it doesn't work very well. Now, step 3, it goes to this next place where I think it's letting go a little bit more control. It's in the I want it phase. Okay. It's just like, I want this. I don't necessarily need to get it, but I just want this. And then the last is what am I? And so let me kind of give you an example of this. So let's just go with money for a second. If you are struggling with money, and I've talked to so many people lately with the economy and everything else that's going on, and people are saying like, how are people affording anything? And I agree. I sometimes get into the same place sometimes and get into a little bit of fear. So I hear you. But I want to offer to you how this could work to get to 4 steps to freedom with money as just an example. If we are in phase 1, step 1 of I can't do this, then literally like you're in that stuck place. And this is where it's kind of like the right? Is I don't have enough money. I can't make this work. I'm stuck. I'm whatever. And we can stay there. But you can feel how heavy that is. Just like, yeah, you are stuck. You are right. And you're stuck. So that's the I can't phase. And I think, again, we're not going to shame anything in any of these phases. It's just more of that recognition of just like, oh yeah, I'm in the I can't phase and I'm all in. I'm going to let myself feel that. But when I'm ready, I'm going to get to step 2, which is the striver, right? Like I have to figure this out. I have to figure out how to pay my bills. I have to make this different. This isn't working for me. And so you can find, again, it's like a lot of trying to prove things and trying to control, right? It's like doubling down on a budget, getting a different job, creating offers that maybe don't align with us because we're just like, I have to figure this out. And you can see it and you can feel it in the energy. It's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of grinding. It's a lot of trying to prove ourselves in some way. And that's the striver. And again, we all kind of go through these phases, but it's just recognizing like the goal to get to freedom, to change things, to ultimately change things. We want to get ourselves to the further part of this, the step 3 and step 4. So step 3, if like, I want this, it was just like, I just want to figure this out. I just want to support my family. I just want to, whatever it is. Can you notice the shift in the energy? It's not like a needing, it's not a have to, it's more of just like, I just want this. I just want freedom. I just want to be able to support my family a little bit more. And again, we're not trying to step outside and do more action. It's just more of this place of like, it's okay for me to want this. It's okay for me to be in this place. And then the step 4 is actually, if I'm going to bring this back to church, the gospel, religion, just for a second, step 4 is a little bit more of like turning this over to God and saying like, you know what, who am I? Who am I? I am God. I'm Heavenly Father's daughter. Who am I? Like, if I'm not worrying about this, if I am trusting, I'm having faith, remember with the doubt, right? Faith is doubt. Then what would be different in the situation? Now, again, step 3 and 4 does not mean we don't take action. But the place that we do it from is so different if we are coming from 3 and 4 of wanting it and believing in who we are versus I can't do this or the striver in us. So the way that you can start to do this is really focusing on being or asking yourself that question of who am I? And what does that feel like? If you are sitting in this place of like, I am loved, I am lovable, I am a daughter of God, I am like letting yourself just actually let that settle into you and then approach. So what do I want to do in this situation? If I don't have to prove anything, I'm not stuck, I'm not right, what do I want to do? You might find answers come to you so much easier. 3 and 4 involves God. 3 and 4 means getting outside of us. It means letting go of control, right? 1 and 2 is a lot of control based. 3 and 4 is, I know who I am, and I'm also going to let go and say, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can. I am a daughter of God. I am loved. I'm whole. I'm complete. I'm turning this over to you. Does that make sense? I hope that does. But I just think it's really, really beautiful for us to kind of play around with like that goal from getting from right to freedom. And again, we're not ever going to, I wouldn't say it that way. Notice I'm kind of getting all or nothing, but it's not meaning that we're always going to be in the freedom place. There's characters that we've created. There's parts of us that are naturally going to come up. And I notice too, when I step into that freedom place too, of just like, I am a daughter of God. This is easy. I can figure this out. 1 and 2 versions of me, the I can't and the striver are definitely there. They're totally there. They're trying to, kind of wedge themselves into it. But I just, instead of trying to answer them, I just notice them. I'm just like, I totally see you. I totally see you. 1 and 2, striver, the can't. I see you. I love you. Thank you. And I'm going to step back into this because I believe that I can create more money from a place of believing in myself than having to do it all myself. And it's so different, right? It's a focus of what I am and what I want and who I am. And that's a way better place. I mean, the feeling there is just a lot more grounded, and it's not so focused on my circumstances. Whereas 1 and 2 is all about the circumstances and needing things to be proven to myself or to prove to others, right? I think it's just a beautiful place for us to learn how to connect more to ourselves. It's about being bigger than the money, being bigger than our circumstances. We heard this so much in General Conference, a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, you aren't your circumstances. This life is not your circumstances. When it's all said and done, we can't take that with us. Kind of bringing about what I said a little bit earlier in the podcast about everything is temporary. Your money, your house, everything is temporary. It doesn't mean we don't need those things and we don't need to work on those things, but what place is it coming from? If it's coming from I can't and I'm trying to prove, I'm just offering it's a totally different place than being in a I want it and who am I different place. One of the ideas that he says at the very beginning or at the very end of this is because someone asked that question of like, okay, so if I'm staying in the place of I want this and who am I, trying to practice this, then the 1 and 2 are going to show up. And he's like, well, of course it is. It's like us going to the gym and getting on the treadmill and still seeing fat. He's like, of course you are. We're not trying to get, I mean, yes, the goal is to eventually get rid of the fat if we can, but it's knowing that fat is also there. Like we always have fat. So it's not, we've got to be careful with trying to get rid of everything. It's just being able to recognize it and keep working on it. Keep getting on the treadmill. Keep practicing seeing who you are. Keep practicing feeling it and not necessarily trying to prove yourself or trying to control everything. And it's easier said than done. I know that, but 1 and 2 is capped, right? 1 and 2, the potential there is capped. 3 and 4 is limitless. And that's what we want more of. We want that freedom that's on the other side of this. So anyways, I know this was a lot of different things. I think they sometimes also did work all the way together. Who knows? But I would love to hear from you guys. If this style resonated for you, if you guys want more of these, I thought about doing like some of my favorite thoughts, different things like that, because I have so many notebooks full of just ideas that I don't think I'll ever do a full podcast on. But I would love to hear from you guys, maybe some of the things and insights that you're learning. And then I would love to hear if you guys resonate with, the 4 steps to freedom. And if you're able to recognize that in yourself and, what are your thoughts about being able to double down on 3 and 4 and practicing being who you want to be and believing that and feeling it? I don't know. It's just something to kind of think about, practice, and see what might be different. All right, you guys, I appreciate you guys. Come back next week. Hopefully I will have on Mark Butler. He's going to be an amazing guest. He's one of my best friends ever, been such a support to me here in the coaching world. I'm still not sure exactly what I'm going to ask him because he has a plethora of information. But I promise you it's going to be good. So anyways, I appreciate you guys. Go find me on the grams, DM me. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.